Welcome to the Champions of Active Women podcast. In this podcast, we will interview individuals who have been successful within athletics and beyond. We hope that these interviews will encourage and inspire girls and women to be active for a lifetime, to reach their goals, and to break new barriers in sport and life. This podcast is brought to you by the Active Women's Health Initiative and the Sports Medicine Research Institute at the University of Kentucky. The mission of the Active Women's Health Initiative is to optimize health and promote physical activity and wellness for girls and women across the lifespan. We hope you enjoy our conversations and join us in understanding women's health today to ensure women's health tomorrow. Welcome to our first episode of the Champions of Active Women podcast for 2021. I am delighted to be joined today by Dr. Sheilley. Dr. Sheilley is the Vice President of Athletics at Transylvania University, where she became the university's first female director of athletics in 2013 and was promoted to her current role in 2015. She oversees 23 NCAA-sponsored sports, as well as 3 additional co-ed varsity programs. Dr. Sheilley came to Transylvania with a wealth of experience from her previous positions, which include serving as the Assistant Director of Championships for the National Collegiate Athletic Association and as the Assistant Director for Student Development and Championships at the University of Louisville. She earned her undergraduate degree from Asbury University, where she was a multi-sport athlete, and a master's degree in health education from Eastern Kentucky University. Dr. Sheilley earned her PhD in sports administration from the University of Louisville. Welcome, Dr. Sheilley.
Yeah, thanks, Dee. I appreciate you all having me on, and I'm excited to talk with you.
So as I shared in your bio, you have all kinds of experiences in sport, as an athlete yourself, as a coach, and now as an administrator in several different locations. Could you just talk to us to get started about how you got your start in sports?
Yeah, I think from my earliest memory from being a child, I've always loved sports. And my parents tell me a story. I was, they think 4 or 5, and behind our house there was it was fenced in, and there was a ball field. And I climbed up on the fence to watch the boys play. And the coach came over and asked me what I thought. And apparently I told him one day I would be coaching, not him. So I don't know. I think I really wanted to play, but I didn't even know if that was an option at the point. So, I think I was extremely blessed with the opportunity to play several different sports that my mother and father helped support me to do, and just loved it. And I like I said, I knew when I was a kid and people would ask me what I wanted to do for a lifetime, I used to first say I'd want to be an Olympian. And then as I got older and realized I wasn't skilled enough to be an Olympian, I went to the coach route. But I think sports are a transformative experience. And I think it's not just about wins and losses. It's so much more.
So you mentioned your mom and dad there being supportive of you playing sports. Were there other people in your life, either at a young age or as you went through your sport career, who were really important in kind of pushing you and continuing in that direction?
Yeah. When I was looking at a college to go to, and in the 80s, when you were looking at colleges, there was no internet to do the search. And there was also not women's games that you were watching online or, on TV. So I didn't even really formulate that there would be an opportunity to play in college. And as we went around, and my mother, I have a twin brother, and she literally dragged us to college after college to visit. And I went to Asbury to visit in Wilmore, Kentucky, and met Rita Pritchett, who at the time was the athletic director and professor and a coach. And it was the first woman that I ever recall in my life meeting who was a coach, and so I've never had a female coach. I never had been around a female in sport. And the opportunity to play for her was, I was just like, I want to do this. Like, I immediately was like, this is where I'm coming. This lady is so impressive. And, she absolutely made an impact on my life, and what she empowered me to know what I could do in athletics. She was the first female athletic director in the state of Kentucky at college. And so she has since passed away, but At my desk here at work, I have her picture because, when days are hard and I can't call her anymore, I think about, the legacy that she's left and what she's done for me and so many women to be able to do something we love.
That role modeling is so important even today. While women's sports have grown tremendously over that time, role modeling is still such an important factor. Can you speak to what you think about the importance of role modeling and kind of younger women or girls being able to see female role models?
Yeah, I think it's so really, it's vital. If you don't see someone who looks like you doing what you want to do, whether that's playing sports or in the career that you want or you think you want, why would you think that you could do it? And I just think that it's really important. And I've been so, it's been a tough year on everybody, but there's been a couple breakthroughs in women in sport, whether it's breaking into the men's game and being able to be a kicker for Vanderbilt or whatever it is, just so now young ladies can look at that and go, wow, I could do that. I think is tremendous.
Mm-hmm. And you have been one of those women as well, right? You are serving as Transylvania's first woman athletic director, and one of a handful still of female athletic directors in Kentucky, and still a relatively small number across the United States as well. So, from the perspective of a sport administrator, why do you think it's so important to provide these opportunities for women?
Yeah, if it's an important part of your value system to uplift women or minorities or whatever it is, then you have to be on the front line of helping them raise them up too. You can't just say, hey, I made it, so good luck to you. But it has to be a process where you say, just like someone did for me, hey, I'm going to help you get there. I want to help you achieve what you want to be. And if that's athletics, please let me help you do that.
Mm-hmm. Kind of reaching that hand back as somebody reached their hand down to you and kind of
Exactly.
pulling people up. So, what have you found most challenging in your role as a sport administrator?
Yeah, I think the most challenging thing is, sometimes, there seems like there's always endless work. I don't care how many years, 20 plus years I've been doing this, and I'm as organized as the next best person. And the thing that is challenging for me is to say, Holly, it doesn't matter how many things are on your plate, that budget, those capital expenses, whatever it is, the most important reason that you exist is for our student athletes. And so for me, that means I want to be out there serving them. I want them to see me as someone who's there to support, serve them, love them, because I can't expect them to do something I don't do. I want them to know I'm giving my best so that they give their best. So I think the most challenging thing for me is just making sure I always have my priorities straight and what I'm doing in a day so that I'm modeling exactly what I hope for them.
Mm-hmm. Easy to get lost in, for the student athlete experience to get lost in kind of the day-to-day administration, it
Yeah,
sounds
and
like.
it kind of sounds weird, but it is.
Mhm.
Sometimes you just, oh my gosh, this is a great idea. I want to do this, I want to do that. And then there's the kid standing at my door that wants to talk to me. That's actually more important than all these other things I have on my list. And I just want to continue to remind myself that that's really why I do what I do.
So then on the flip side, what is the most rewarding part of your job?
I think the most rewarding part is pretty easy for me because it's always been this, and that is watching a student athlete walk in the door as a freshman, then literally watching the transformation over those 4 years, and then watching as they, progress in their career and their family and their life, and just the power that sports has. I don't, people who aren't in sports may not understand that power, but as a part of a team, you learn how to win, you learn how to lose, you learn failures, you learn how to get yourself back up. And to me, that's the most rewarding part.
In preparing for this interview, I read about some of the efforts that you have made at Transylvania to support female student athletes in particular. Like in 2019, you connected 150 female student athletes to female campus leaders. Why are some of these programs so important to you?
I think because you just never know when a program, and sometimes I'm sure, I'm sure I did the same thing when I was in their shoes. Oh gosh, we got another program that we're required to go to, but you go to it and you're sitting there, and then that student hears from a campus leader who's not in sports, but they all of a sudden go, wow, I can use what I just learned in sports to do this for my career. And it's actually putting those nuggets out there and letting them see where they can end up and what they can do with the wonderful talents and blessings that they've been given. And I think that's really important. And I just think continuing to say to them in every way that you can, look, I know you have a lot of fears. I know you have a lot of apprehension. We all do. But we got to push through that because we have a lot we can do with our lives. And time is short, and I want to help them figure out what that is.
Yeah, almost, kind of helping them to realize that power of sports that you were just talking about and apply it to the rest of their lives, make it really explicit for them.
Absolutely.
So in what areas do you think we still have some room to make some progress in women in sports, whether it's for athletes, for coaches, for administrators?
Yeah, this week we've had, I'm part of the NCAA Division III Management Council. We've had meetings. This is the virtual convention, which is strange.
Yeah.
But during that time, we've been talking in those meetings about social justice, diversity. And even though, wow, we've come a long ways, we're still only 21% of the director of athletics in the country at any of the three divisions, women. And, then you add in the other diverse components like, race and ethnicity. We have a long ways to go. I mean, we really do. And I just, I'm encouraged that we keep making progress, but we can't stop. We have to continue to do that and to make it a world where everybody has opportunities and everybody can be at the table. And so on a daily basis, that's something that I think about a lot, and not just women. I think about how can I make, Transy athletics a better place for minorities or whatever it might be. And I hope that that is something that, we continue to see improvement in our country and in athletics.
What do you, as a sport administrator, whether it's, making the campus and the community a safe place for everyone, or whether it's bringing more diversity into coaching and administration, what do you see as some of the biggest ways that we can make those changes?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing we can do is not be silent. I think silence in itself is actually evil.
Yeah.
I don't. That might be said strongly, but I do think that to not speak is to speak, and to not act is to act. And I think people have to understand that. And it's the WAC conference right now has done the Bill Russell rule, where they're making sure that a minority candidate is a part of the pool when they do any of the searches for head coaches, administrators. We should all be doing this. We should all be taking these steps to make sure that we are being inclusive and that we're actually listening. And that's one of the things I say to myself, or try to say to myself a lot, especially in those scenarios with, groups of people who are different than me. Harley, are you really listening to what they're saying and what they need versus you putting your own will or what you think they need or say? And then as we make decisions about whatever it might be, how we represent our department or how we do branding, are we taking that into consideration? Are we making decisions based on how it would be if you were them? Sometimes it's as simple as saying, are we using the golden rule?
Yeah. Some of it, I think that's right. It goes back to just some of those basic things we all learned in kindergarten or as young people.
Right.
So in what areas do you think then, kind of on the opposite side, have we done well? Have we made some really good progress and things that you see that are promising or exciting for women or diversity in sports? We'll broaden it to diversity.
Yeah. I mean, if you go back to when Title IX started, and, it's almost 50 years old now, started in 1972, and you look at the data back then, and the number of women participating was so high. The number of participation is not exactly high as it was. And, we have less women in coaching than we did then. I mean, we're trying to build that number back up, and we've definitely made progress. As I mentioned, we've made progress in administration. We made progress with women, but I still think that we need to be encouraging our young women and girls that to participate and that they can participate. And there's still a lot of stereotypes out there about women who participate in athletics or in sports that can be a hindrance to some who would like to.
So, thinking more broadly than sport, one of our goals as the Active Women's Health Initiative is to really encourage girls and women across the whole lifespan to be active and to move, whether they consider themselves athletes or whether they're just being active across their life. So, why do you think it's so important to encourage girls and women to be active?
Yeah, it's interesting. It's an interesting question, and one that recently I heard Brene Brown. She was doing a podcast with Tim Ferriss, and I can't remember who else it was. But the thing that struck me, and here's these three, very well versed people on this podcast, and she asked both of the men, and mind you, they were men. If I had to take one thing away from you, what would you say would tear up your career? Like it would be a game changer. And they both said, if you told me I could no longer be active. And
Hmm.
she herself said, I feel the same way. And that strikes me because I feel that way. I mean, if you told me that I couldn't exercise, I mean, to me, exercise is such, yes, of course, it's a benefits for your cardiovascular and all that, but it is such an opportunity for mental health, emotional health, makes you feel better. Everything that you do is shaped about doing physical, some kind of activity. And so I just, as much as women can and girls can be active, I do think it's a life changer. And I think it gives you, I think it's an empowering thing to do. I think it does change your life and change your own perception. And you can definitely look at the hormones that are released and all that. And of course, it supports it. But I think anybody I know that is active on a daily basis will say, don't take that from me. That is my mental, emotional, physical savior.
Yeah. I think it's an interesting perspective because it's something that you can see once you've been active and have it and you've figured out how to fit that into your day. And I think it's more challenging for people maybe who aren't active right now to think, how do I get that into my day and how do so do you have any tips or strategies that are helpful to you that help you to fit physical activity in and make time for it in your schedule?
Yeah, I really wanted to be the person who woke up early in the morning and did their workout and, could mark it off. It just doesn't work for me. And for a
Hmm.
long time, I beat myself up about this. And then I finally got to the point and said, you know what? You're not like everybody else. You got to do it where it fits. So first I'd say, don't get into the mindset that you have to do it at a certain time or a certain way. And then second, I mean, as silly as it sounds, if it's important to you, you'll put it on your calendar and you'll schedule time for it. I have it scheduled in my calendar. Not saying I don't sometimes miss it, but I really try to say to myself, this makes everything I do better if I
Hmm.
get this. And for me, as weird as it sounds, it actually is better for me to do it in the middle of the day. It
Hmm.
means sometimes I'm actually, go for a run, have to come back, take a quick shower, and then go to a meeting, and I might still be having sweat going down my brow. But trust me, I'm in a better mental state because I had that time. And so I would just say, find what you love. It doesn't have to be running. It could be boxing, it could be walking, and just make time on your calendar to start with. And don't beat yourself up when you miss it.
Hmm.
You can restart tomorrow just as easy.
Yeah, I think that's great advice, and finding that time that works for you, and finding the activity that works for you, and knowing the benefits that go well beyond just overall health benefits that are way down the line for most people. So, from either your experiences or from watching other student athletes, what do you think are some of the challenges they experience in transitioning from competitive athletics into a more lifetime physical activity approach?
Yeah, I think anybody, and I don't know, Dee, if you were, a college athlete or not,
I
but
was, yeah, I swam
yeah,
in college.
that's a hard transition. For most, right, you've been with this team, typically 5, 6, 7 years old, all the way through college. And then you graduate, and then all of a sudden, the opportunities actually for adult team sports is pretty limited, to be honest. And so then you start transitioning into other things. The one thing I realized, I played volleyball, basketball, and softball in college. Those aren't easy to do by yourself
No.
too well. And so, I had to figure out sports that I could do as a lifetime sports. And so I think that's probably the hardest piece to transitioning is you've been so used to this team and how you all, how you do everything together and the competition, the camaraderie, and then all of a sudden you're kind of on your own. And so I think we see a lot of both men and women really struggle with that transition and trying to come up with, hey, what's going to be my lifetime fitness here?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for me, it was also learning how to eat appropriately after I stopped exercising at that intense level because my body hadn't caught up to that level.
I think I experienced your same pain.
So, what advice do you have for girls and women about playing sports or just being active?
Yeah, I mean, I would just say, for those of you who, people that are mothers or they have an influence on children at all, I just think the power of sports is really, really good. And not just, again, it's so much more than wins and losses. Certainly, it's good to teach kids that there's going to be days there's failures and there's going to be days of success and how do you handle both. But I just think that, it gives you a sense of accomplishment. It gives you a sense of self. It can make you feel good about yourself. It can be empowering. And so I just, whatever it might be, hopefully give kids an opportunity to do that. Give young ladies the opportunity to participate.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned your parents at the very beginning and them giving you that opportunity to participate. Was your whole family active or was
Yeah,
it?
interestingly enough, my mom doesn't, and she's in her 80s now, both my parents are. My mom never did sports. And likely, part of the reason she never had the opportunity when she was young. I mean, that was not a thing for her time or age group. But even though she never did sports, she completely supported me in sports. And, so it's definitely something that you can do even if you're not great at sports. And I
Mm-hmm.
would say, for my mom, she probably would say that she was not great at sports, but she also didn't have the opportunity. But she knew there was something. She knew there was something different when I had the opportunity to participate and play.
Mm-hmm. Do you have any advice for parents or guardians or any people who have influence over youth who just aren't interested in playing sports? Maybe they don't think they're an athlete or they don't think they're athletic or, for whatever the reason is, they're not that interested.
Yeah, I mean, I, I think you don't have to play a competitive sport to be active. And maybe the active is your hiking or your biking or your, kayaking or canoeing or, it doesn't have to be a competitive sport. I do think there's a lot to be said about just being active with your children, with your family, and the power that that brings together. And in the release it brings just mentally and from the emotion of our world and what's going on.
Yeah, especially in the current environment where, this past year has been um, just different for everyone and for most people, not in a positive way. So it's a good way to spend some time together.
Yeah, and I think, we talked about that a lot because one of the ways a lot of people release, especially college student athletes, is mentally they release by being with their team. And a lot of that has, between quarantine and having to make restrictions on teams, they haven't got to do that. And so, it's been tough mentally on a lot of people and emotionally.
So, what else would you like to share with our audience today?
Um, I think obviously the COVID-19 pandemic will forever change our lives. And I'm sure there are things like that I've learned that now I do. And I think, wow, probably should have been doing that before. So I think there are actually things that we are going to learn that, this is actually a positive. And I think there are things that we're going to hope we never have to go through this again. I don't know how many COVID-19 policies one person can write, but I feel like I write them on an every other day basis. I think the thing I'd leave people with, as much as COVID-19 has been a pandemic, the complete outcry of our country and the social justice issues is a pandemic in itself. And, I said earlier, and I really mean it, I don't think we can, I think sometimes, and I'm guilty of this too, I'm just going to stay silent. I don't want to ruffle anybody's feathers. I think that time, what we've learned is that's past. We have brothers and sisters collectively who are not doing well, and us being silent is not helping. And I really, really hope that we can all take the experiences of this last year and really elevate what we do and really speak to those women and men and minorities and whatever it might be, about what's important. And, I know at Transy, as I mentioned, I want our student athletes to learn to serve, to love one another, to give their best. But if they don't see that I treat people who look different than me or who are different than me like me, then that's a bigger problem. And that will kill our nation. And I'm not sure it hasn't already started that way. And so I just, it's hard for me not to use this opportunity to just really implore people we got to do better, all of us.
Yeah, and I think it's a great message. And I think if I'm hearing you correctly, it doesn't matter whether you're in sports or any other industry. It's a us, all of us collectively message, not just for any particular group.
Yeah, and it kind of feels like sometimes in the media that it gets pushed, right? It's so-and-so's problem. It's the police's problem. It's the politician's problem. No, it really isn't. Because I think if we really uncovered the onion and started peeling back the layers, we'd all see that we have issues in our house. Mm-hmm. And we've got to start acting, and we've got to start speaking, and we got to start being a part of the solution. Otherwise, we are really a part of the problem.
And I think given what you said about the power of sport has the ability to play a role in being a source for good and a source for inclusion. And I think that's a really powerful message.
Absolutely. And it's a platform, and it's a gift, and it's an opportunity. And, that's the one thing I say to, our student athletes and our coaches. Trust me, if you walk down Lexington and you take your mask off, don't think no one's not going to take a picture and then remember that you were Transy Athletics. They remember both the good and the bad. Mm-hmm. And that's a lot of pressure, but that's a lot of gift. And so you have a large opportunity to make a difference. And I hope that we are using that to make a difference.
Well, I thank you so much for sharing your time and your story with us today. And I thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Dee. I appreciate you having me. Appreciate everything that you all are doing. And, anything to champion women in Lexington, Fayette County, let's do it.
Thank you for listening to the Champions of Active Women podcast. This podcast is brought to you by the Active Women's Health Initiative and was produced by the Faculty Media Depot at the University of Kentucky. If you enjoyed this episode, you can listen and subscribe to all of our episodes wherever you find your podcasts. For up-to-date information about the Active Women's Health Initiative, you can find us on social media at UKAWHI. Thank you for supporting us as we work to promote health and physical activity among girls and women across the lifespan.